Hi, everybody. So today I want to talk to you about funding and different funding sources. Now, this is a very particular type of funding episode because there's a lot of places and a lot of countries that are getting funding for doing a show about a particular subject. But there's not a lot of discussion on how the funding will be used and if it is a larger subject. Bear with me. So I'm going to use a show you probably all know, which is Tennessee Williams' Glass Menagerie. What problem is that character suffering from that with her little glass animals and her sort of, the way she is? It isn't named in the play what could be wrong with her. We make our own deduction. So is doing that play enough for the funding you receive that talks about that particular mental issue? Is it depression? Is it some sort of strange little narcissism? Is it something to do with whatever? Is that enough for the funding that you fulfilled your duty on doing a show about that topic? Or can you leave it a little ambiguous and say, we were funded by this company or this grant from the government or whoever in your country to do a show about this topic. Now, it's not directly about this topic, but that's how we went about directing the show, is that this character has this topic as an issue. And though it is not named in the piece, we are going to do specialized classes or prologues or epilogues to discuss this character having this topic, this problem. And that is enough for that parent company, not parent theater company, but that funding company to satisfy the needs. When you do partner with a company or receive funding to do something with particular aim, because you can't receive a grant that is for a particular aim, for a particular topic, and just do what you want. It doesn't work like that. You must use the money for what you applied for the grant for. The same topic must be covered. Are doing epilogues and prologues before or after the show covering that topic and saying this is how we directed it with this topic in mind, is that enough? Now, in certain countries, it is enough because, as I'm reading online, some people believe it's overkill. And why should the director and the team be limited by this topic? Well, when it comes to mental health, there are many ways that topic, whether it's, I'm not going to say the scariest topic, but unaliving yourself, that's a topic that isn't really discussed on YouTube. They tend to frown on these videos. But that topic, or depression, or other mental illness, or trauma, because trauma should be discussed. And the way it manifests in a person, in a character, has a whole variety of things, a whole variety of ways to be expressed. And sometimes it's not clear from the script that this is what happened to this character. It's not named in the script, it's not discussed in the script, but as you are showing in your epilogues and prologues, I get it. There's a lot of ways this can manifest itself, and this is what we're doing. It might make you a better company to have these parameters, which some say are confining, which is too bad, but they want to accept these grants anyway, which can be substantial. I believe that if you tackle this head on and say, here's what we want to do, does this satisfy your need and approve us for that money? This is what we plan to do, okay? We're not changing the lines in the script to cover what you're saying, especially when it's a script like Glass Menagerie. At the time it was written, I think in the 50s, whatever topic probably has another name. They had names like hysteria, and they didn't have things like congenital blah, blah, blah. The names have become very technical for everything. You just can't say, ticky heart. It now is congestive heart failure. And that has several, areas and different, you know, diagnosis. She has narcissism. Well, that is a whole gamut of things. Covert narcissist, introvert narcissist. What does that mean? So you can't just change the lines to suit whatever this grant is, what you think, forcing you to cover. They're not forcing you. You've gone into this agreement, okay? I was part of a show where they received a grant to include members of the local handicapped theater. Now, they have other titles for it. The theater has a whole variety of people. Some were people with car accidents. Some were people that were born different. Some were people that were just capable. They had normal lives, and they had cerebral palsy or anything else like that. And they included two members in this other show, but ran into problems. So they took the money, and there was not a lot of backup. And to be fair to the theater doing this piece, it wasn't evident that they needed it. Okay? The two best members of that handicapped troupe came to do a show with us. But the show was a new musical, and they didn't understand the type of length of rehearsals we had, and the type of rehearsals that were, important for a new play or a new musical. They didn't understand that we had worked on this section of the musical or this song, and now, a week before opening, it was tossed out. This was a big deal to them. It was very hard to explain, this is just how new musicals work. We've tried, it's not working. We had several things like there's a birth of a baby. There's a birth of two babies, actually. And in the end, it was just cumbersome. And the baby that was purchased for the first baby was this style of resin and plastic that looked very strange under our LED lights. No one knew that one. So there had to be this whole flourishing thing of I'm birthing. There's a big sheet over me, and the sheet is gathered up and is suddenly presented as baby. And they didn't really understand why there was now nothing to look at but a wrapped up, swaddled imaginary baby. This seems simple to us, but it was a little disturbing to them. And the deeper things that should have been handled were the one gentleman, he could do everything. He could dance, he could take direction, he understood the mechanics of the theater and so forth, but his voice had issues. So he was often very loud and then very soft. And that was something he could not control. And as we got different audiences in to watch, not the public, but invited guests and so forth, they said, "What is that? Is he being comedic? What's going on?" It's like, no, he's handicapped. Well, just in his small part alone, you couldn't quite tell that he was handicapped because he was so mobile and agile and so forth. And the only visible thing was this auditory thing. And also, it turns out he could not catch a tune. He could not hold a tune. He could not sing. Everything came out in this sort of loud, quiet way. And then the harder he was trying, the more monotone he got. And that was how he got an even volume, but it was very robotic and still quite loud. And I felt terrible for him, poor thing. He was trying the best he could. So in the end, he was just told to mouth the words, and then all his lines were taken from him. And that was not the original intent of having him in that show. So his experience was, bad. The other person had cerebral palsy. She had a few other things happening with her body, which I won't go into. The main thing I need to talk about is her cerebral palsy. She was very mobile, but she had sort of she was a wobbly girl. And she was great, and she really brought a lot to her character. She really exuded joy and the sadness of the character, and she was spot on with her deliveries, and her voice was also a little warbled, but it made sense, and she could control the warble if she took a breath before everything or stopped in the middle, but it just enhanced the character. Everything that was her issue, not her problem, everything about her person worked with the character. And it was immediately evident from the first time she walked on stage, like, oh, she has a bit of a wobble. Okay, we get it. We understand. So when the words came out in that way, it was great. And when she sang, nothing went wrong. She could sing beautifully. And the unfortunate thing is that she could lose her balance very easily. So she had to be placed quite late in the rehearsal series, always near someone in case she lost her balance. This was fine, except for dancing sequences. So we had to pull her out of dancing sequences, which really brought the attention to her character for some reason when it wasn't needed. And a lot of the dancing sequences were sort of these concentric circles going around each other at the same time at different angles, and lots of arms in the air. And she couldn't do it. It was very sad. And the child that she was given, as far as her child, I'm sorry, I'm talking about, I have an itch that you're watching because I'm comfortable talking about this poor show and these poor people. So I'm getting an itch. That the child that was given, it was her daughter on the stage, was a very rambunctious child and very young. And she could not take direction. She was sort of a live wire, which was great in other shows, and they had used her before because she was always sort of hilarious. But she would yank this woman on stage, like yank her by the arm, or pull her by the arm, or be near her and like yank on her clothes, and she always got her off balance. And the child would not take direction. She wasn't a bad kid. She just had never been told no, quite literally, ever. And her mother was one of those stage mothers who didn't understand what the problem was. She's cute, she's amazing. It's like, well, not all this musical is cute and amazing and all about this kid who's jumping around, pushing her mother over. So, well, can't you just stop touching her? Well, yeah, she could, but she's not, because she's just taking the direction she was originally directed with, and she's never let it go. She would just sort of fade out. And she would often miss her entrances because she also couldn't listen for her cues. Now, there was a child minder, but they had many children, not many children in the show, but they had, there was a child with the lead, and she had a lot of entrances and exits. And the child minder would take her, and the other one was supposed to, the other two were supposed to know when they went on. She was double cast, and the other child, who was the same age, was perfect, but not able to do the whole season, the whole run of the show. So the little child who kept knocking over the handicapped mother got fired because she would not take direction. Again, not a bad kid, just too young or too something to really understand what it was like working with a handicapped person. When the child was gone, all the falling down, all the off balances stopped. There was the occasional, but they were in scenes where she was close enough to hold on. That's all she needed, was just to hold on like this, very gently, or hold on to an arm. And it all really enhanced the show. It all made sense with the wobbliness we had seen entering her scenes. It really worked. Giving her a cane wasn't an option because when the wobbly happened, the cane would drop and it was very loud. So, and she said, I do better without a cane. Please trust me. So there was no second time with this particular grant and the sharing of resources and people with this other handicapped theater because it really didn't go well the first time. Not that it was that terrible, but bad enough where it was like, well, it's not worth doing this because both people in the show didn't really achieve what they wanted to be. You should have people in your show that can do the work. You should have people in the show that are from these other theaters or have these different capabilities or disabilities, whatever you want to call it. And there should be backup. We should know that sometimes there might be something extra needed to have them in the show. If you have a wheelchair on stage, is your backstage set up everywhere for wheelchair access? That's important. Sometimes you think, well, it's easy on the stage. Yeah, but they need to get everywhere. They need to get into the bathroom. They need to get all around the backstage. Is it set up for that? Or is it too crowded? If you have a wobbly person, do they need a cane? What does that mean? Is the cane that they normally use, is it a modern like cane that supports the arm and so forth, and it's aluminum, but you're doing a show that takes place in the 1700s, so you can't have it? What does that mean for that prop? What do they need? Will a wooden prop that looks different handle the same? What can you do about that? It's not just as easy as, yes, be in the show, we'll handle it later. You have to look at these things and have someone who knows about these things, that has worked with these kind of actors, to help you handle the show. You have to take that funding, that grant, and know what you're getting into, okay? What does this topic, this grant covers? What does that mean? And what is your theater's intention to handle this? And realize that it's a discussion, that we'll just do this and we'll take the money and that'll be enough for them. Really? If you want to continue taking money from these theaters or from these government funds or from these hospital funds to do these kind of things, you need to realize this is a joint effort. You got that money, you got that theater's input, you got their supplies, you got their resources for a reason, and there will be things you didn't expect. But do it anyway. Do it anyway. And have discussions with the actor, with the other theater, the handicap theater, with the government company. What do we need to do? Okay, here's our idea. We know there will be unexpected portions of this idea. We want to keep doing this, okay? Theaters need funding. We need more versatility in actors on stage. It means more than just race and color. It means differently abled people on stage, that kind of thing. This is important. All right, that's my message for today. Think about it, do your research, be forthcoming, be honest, and tell them what your limitations are and ask what their limitations are, what your expectations are, and what their expectations are. All right? We don't want bad surprises. Okay. We'll talk again. Thanks. Bye.